The results of such cases is to discourage and penalize certain forms of art are dealing with sexuality, especially gay or lesbian sexuality, explicit politic art, offensive, obscene, or irreligious art, and so on. As the observer of the endowed noted, that we are seeing is a very real attempt by conservatives to stop certain kind of art dead in its tracks. What I am suggesting is that such efforts now extend far beyond the endowment and the arena of public funding. The effort to penalize those who make tribute or promote difficult or disturbing art has now broadened to include privately funded art, such as the Bolton exhibit mentioned above, and commercial work, such as the music of Two Live Crew and Ice-T. One thing then about the present political situation is clear. Artists can no longer rely on the indulgence of a public convinced that art and artistic autonomy are worth protecting at all costs. Nor can they assume that works that challenge the status quo will have a chance at even the modest support offered by the NAA or at winning public exhibition. Of course, from the standpoint of the history of art, guarantees that art will be protected or founded are relatively recent phenomena. No government needs to have publicity-funded art programs, but once such programs are in place, the demand that artists meet content restrictions is arguably a form of censorship. Is the present climate, the financial, artistic, and personal cost of using certain words, representing certain body parts of or advocating certain beliefs, effectively threatened to relegate whole bodies of opinion to silence? Let's step back for a moment. So far, Helms and his opponents appears to be simply replaying an old debate between the perceived needs of the public and the demand of art. Seeing these terms, Mapplethorpe and his photographs of offended Senator Helms and a member of Congress by seeming to promote homoerotism, sadomasochism, and the sexual exploitation of children. Mapplethorpe opponents argued that the acts these photographs depict and the values they endorse have a negative effect on individual conscience and the quality of public life. In response to this perceived threat, Helms attempted to use the power of the state and the political force of outraged taxpayers to bring the NAA and indirectly artists concerned with this or related issues in line with the conservative values of the political parties in office. This aspect of the current situation makes it natural to associate a political conception of art with those on the political right. While not wrong, this association can be misleading. Although art is under attack from the right in the NAA controversy, the situation is more complicated. Elsewhere in the public arena, art is also under attack from the left, that is, from feminist and progressive social theories generally. Here, the claim is not that art is obscene or indecent, but that it is misogynist, racist, violent, or exclusionary. Thus, those on both the right and the left of the present political spectrum may be seen to link art inextricably to political considerations. A political conception of art thus defines a generic conception of art held by people who may possess opposing political beliefs. Both conservatives and radical feminists, or the beautiful through they may be, have advocated restrictions on certain kinds of art, and both have political agendas they wish to see reflected in their readings lists of literature courses, and the criteria used to found public art. Of course, the first order political views of G. Helms and Catherine Mackinnon are different, and this first order difference is obviously important, but the point I try to make here is that despite their first order disagreement with Helms, many feminists agree with him about the second order point concerning the relevance of political considerations to the evaluation of art. That is, they agree with Helms in holding that it's appropriate to judge art by political standards. I want now to return to the second debate, the debate within aesthetic over the autonomy of art, and an academic discipline. As an academic discipline, aesthetic is witnessing a growing challenge to the old notion of that art is or should be independent of politics. Separation of the aesthetic from other values, moral and religious as well as political, has since Kant largely defined the discipline of aesthetics. At least within the Anglo-American philosophical tradition, aesthetics has come to mean autonomous aesthetics. It is this traditional autonomous aesthetics that is under attack, largely by feminist theorists advancing a political conception of art. From a feminist perspective, the charge against traditional aesthetic is that it isolates art from the contextual and historical factors that, in this view, its proper understanding requires. Confuses the interests of particular groups, mainly the interests of male property owners of European descent, with universal human interests, wrongly attributing universally to partisans artwork, and C. This disguises standards of evaluation which are implicitly if not explicitly committed to existing power relations as purely aesthetics. In adopting a politics of art, feminist theories confront traditional aesthetics head-on. First, in place of an autonomous but isolated art, they substitute a conception of art rooted in life, rooted, for example, in social movement and immediate cultural concern. In these terms, art moves from a separate, protected realm to the everyday world of social and political praxis. It gains a history that transcends the bounds of art history, as they have been traditionally understood. Second, feminist theories challenge art claims to speak for all of us. Traditional aesthetics may be right that art speaks for mankind, but as feminist critics point out, mankind is included only of some of us. To questioning our autonomy and universality need not imply that art lacks value. Quite the contrary. But this questioning may yield answers that differ from that we once supposed. Lastly, having sound to show that purely aesthetic standards of evaluation are not politically neutral, feminist theories urge at their proposal. They ask that we rethink our relationship to established artistic tradition in terms that do not assume such traditions are uniformly enlightening and liberating. In summary, aesthetics within the academic field finds itself embroiled in a debate between two main camps: feminist theories advocating a political conception of art, and traditional aestheticians defending a non-political, basically formalist conception of art. If we stand back from this somewhat rarefied philosophical debate, we can see that it mirrors in interesting respects the greater NEA debate. For at the heart of the debate between traditional aestheticians and feminists lie the same three issues: art, politics, and autonomy, that underlie the conflict between Helms and his opponents. In both cases, the conflict centers on the nature and function of art. These debates have more in common than a shared set of issues. They also share a common situation: the intrusion of politics into what we formally believed to be apolitical arenas. In both the arena of Helmitian-inspired debate and the academy, American aesthetics and its practitioners have faced the erosion of the line dividing art from politics. On both fronts, politics has intruded into what were once purely aesthetics deliberations. To be sure, political considerations have always played a role, however, inadvertent or unacknowledged in the deliberation of the art world. But what we have now, at least with feminist theories, is the over assertion that the role politics play in aesthetics deliberation is necessary and desirable. Within the academy and to some extent in the culture at large, what we are seeing is evidence of a change from the prevailing non-political conception of art to a political one. The growing recognition of art political dimensions and the corresponding shift to a more political conception of art is the result of the interplay of many factors. Dissatisfaction with the limits of not formalistic art criticism, the growth of interest in more broadly cultural approaches to art, the end of the dominance of analytic philosophy, the influence of postmodernism, and most especially the impact of feminism, both as a social movement and as a theoretical discipline, have all shaken the conviction of mainstream analytical aestheticians that political considerations have nothing to do with art. Those who remain committed to the separation of the artistic and the political and the theory of aesthetics autonomy which demanded, now find themselves called upon to defend that what they could once assume with little or no argument. What are we to make of this transformation? The most welcome features of adopting a political conception of art is in broadening the framework in which art is discussed and evaluated. Expanding this framework has had several positive consequences. The first is that it immeasurably enriches our understanding of representation, the pleasures and powers of art, the aesthetic experience. A second related consequence of adopting a political approach to art is the increased potential for art to arouse controversy and engage with the spread public interest. As a result of the NEA controversy, the museums were packed. Many of the people who were there for the first time. Of course, not everyone who came to see this work came out of pure aesthetic motives, yet even those who came to gape, leer, or express moral outrage found themselves face to face with questions about whether anything is a legitimate subject for art, and whether publicly-funded art should have limits that are not imposed on art in general. Lastly, the sudden confusion of politics into discussions of art has initiated important reflection and at the level of public policy. Questions about the role of art in a democratic and pluralistic social order, the value of public art, and the responsibility of the artistic once founded to render his or her creative expressions intelligible and to own are now engaging participants on all sides of the NAA controversy. Quite unintentionally, helms efforts to bring art into the line with conservative values, again, like feminist attempts to bring art criticism into line with progressive values, have brought public attention issues which lie in the root of thinking about artists and their role in society. If therefore one function of art is to broach issues, to force us to look at ourselves and to ask deep questions, we might conclude that the instruction of politics into the art world has been beneficial, reinvigorating and broadening interest in the arts as well as provoking reflections on what role arts play in our individual and communal lives. In the academy, too, the growing acceptance of a political conception of art has resulted in welcome changes. The merging of art and politics evident in feminist theories provides an attractive alternative to the formalism of traditional aesthetics. As a wide variety of critics of formalism have successfully argued, the exclusion of political or any consideration other than narrowly formal ones leave us ill-equipped to understand or explain the kinds of issues posed by contemporary works such as Julie Chicago's Dinner Party or Mapplethorpe X Portfolio. These works and countless others, Marion Reich's documentary films about gay black men, Tongues United, Karen Finlay angry performance pieces, are themselves part of a political debate, partly fueled by arguments about the NEA and driven by powerful questions about homosexuality and homophobia, reproductive choice and woman issues, AIDS and the politics of AIDS. These works can be understood as the works of art they are, in terms of the critical preoccupations of modernism, in terms of moral values, but then neither can much of art. The arguments against approaching Duchamp fountain of or most the history of art prior to this century in these terms to are too well known to need repeating. What we need and what we get once political considerations are allowed to play a role in the discussion of art is a way of recognizing the tensions between aesthetic responses and a whole range of complicated human responses, sexual or erotic, emotional, religious, moral or political. Thus, within the academy as outside it, the shifts from a non-political to a political conception of art have resulted in a more complex and nuanced understanding of the various purposes and functions of art, and the complex emotion it is capable of arousing. For this as well as other reasons, the appearance of a viable alternative to formalism is a welcome occurrence. Less welcome, however, are certain other features of this shift. As we have seen, other characteristic of a political conception of art is a blurring of the distinction between strictly artistic issues and political ones. In blurring this distinction, a political conception of art poses to risk, neither of which rise with formalism. The first risk is that in emphasizing the political character of the art, we shows sight or of underestimate the many non-political elements that make art. It will be difficult, if not impossible, to give a definitive list of these art-making elements, but the general idea is familiar enough. One stands to be able to talk about stylistic or formal features, not only what the work says, but how. The worry is that in abandoning the separation of art and politics, we reduce art to propaganda. The second risk posed by a political conception of art is that art may be exposed to various forms of political interference. The worry here is that once art is thrown off and evaluated in political terms, it loses its independence. In discussing the risk of political interference in the art, it is government interference that often comes first to mind. Equating political interference with government interference uses political in its strict sense. A second threat to our independence involves political interference more broadly understood. What Mill calls the tyranny of the majority, like government action, this sort of activity is designed to restrict or suppress art of certain kinds. Art that is obscene, indecent, unpatriotic, racist, misogynist, and so on. Consumer boycotts, like the one implemented by policy organizations against Ice-T, anti-policy lyrics fall into this category. Thus, while bringing art to public attention and integrating it more closely life, a political conception of art risks making artists and their works dependent on popular opinion and the win of political fashion. Traditionally, artists and their supporters have responded to government-enforced standards of decency and other forms of political interference by appealing to a principle of static autonomy. It is this autonomy that makes such interference illegitimate. The irony of the current situation is that just when artists find themselves most in need of the protection that appeals to autonomy traditionally provided, art theorists are struggling to discredit the very idea of aesthetic autonomy. I do not mean to imply that advocates of a political conception of art, feminists or otherwise, are responsible for the current plaguing of artists. Nor do I mean to imply that individual theorists intend to align themselves with Helm's political agenda, but I am suggesting that in attacking the idea of aesthetic autonomy, feminists are taking a conception of art that provided certain principles to which artists and their supporters could appeal when forced to defend themselves against government's enforced standards of decency and the tyranny of public opinion. Hence, abandoning autonomy has important practical consequences. Its critics have no clearly throughout. Aesthetic thus face a double dilemma. At the level of theory and criticism, we seem forced either to recognize art, political characters, and sacrifice, especially artistic characters, or to recognize its specially artistic characters and ignore the political. At a more practical level, we seem forced to choose between a formalist conception of art, which protected art from the exigencies of changing political fashion, but isolated art from life, and various political conceptions of art which integrate art with life but sacrifice his autonomy. This dilemma appears insoluble, but for what we want it to combine two apparently incompatible things: the recognition of the political characters of art and the recognition of its artistic character. And we also want to separate two apparently inseparable things: the autonomy of art and formalism. This dilemma is, as I have been suggesting, at the heart of current aesthetic concerns. I want to conclude by arguing that this dilemma turns on a misunderstanding of what autonomy demands. This misunderstanding is shared by both traditional aesthetics and many feminists.